This mysterious story brought notorious fame to this small, remote town in America. People living there started to receive anonymous letters that described all their dirty secrets. When everyone realized that it wasn't a prank, it was already too late. The letters resulted in unexplained deaths, prison sentences, and fear that forever engulfed this once friendly town. In this video, we'll tell you about the mysterious story of Circleville, which really deserves to be made into a movie. Imagine that you receive a letter from an unknown person who knows everything about you, from the places you visit to your deepest secrets. But it gets even more terrifying. This anonymous person begins to threaten to reveal all your secrets if you don't do what they say. And now imagine that you are not the only one who receives letters like this, but everyone who lives in this small town. And it looks like this anonymous writer knows all the secrets of literally everyone in the town. It sounds like a movie plot, doesn't it? But this actually happened in 1976 in the American town of Circleville, Ohio. Before these events, almost no one even knew this town existed. It was a quiet, calm, and somewhat boring town with a population of about 10,000 people, and basically all the residents knew each other. Everything changed one day. A lot of residents received eerie letters containing threats and secrets that many people would like to keep to themselves. At first, everything looked like a prank. Some acquaintance just decided to pull people's legs. But how did they know the secrets of so many people? The rumor about these letters started spreading throughout the town, and the residents became more and more afraid with each passing hour. This anonymous person knew too much about too many people to consider it a simple prank. At that moment, no one knew that Mary Gillespie would be the key figure in this whole story. She hid the fact that she also received these horrible letters because the secrets described in them could ruin her life. Mary made her living by driving a school bus. This mysterious stalker said that they had been watching the woman's house for several weeks. They knew that Mary was married and had a child, and they also knew about her love affair with the headmaster of a local school. In the letter, this anonymous person told her to end her extramarital affair, threatened her, and said there would be consequences if she didn't obey. She lived in fear for several weeks, trying to figure out who this stalker was all by herself. But it was impossible to keep this secret. Her husband, Ron Gillespie, started receiving letters as well, and they scared him witless. The stalker demanded that he get rid of his wife's lover, or he'd be the one to get killed. Mary assured her husband that she didn't know this stalker and had no idea what they were talking about. Of course, after these letters, the man began to question his wife's loyalty to him, but he had no way of verifying this information. Ultimately, the couple decided to simply ignore those letters. But everything changed when they received a letter with the following content. "Gillespie, I gave you 2 weeks and you didn't do anything. Tell the school board about everything. If you don't do it, I'll send this information to CBS, print posters, hang billboards everywhere until everyone knows the truth." The couple continued their attempts to track down the stalker, and they started to suspect Ron's sister's husband, Paul Freshour. His wife, Karen, was actually the one who suggested it for the first time. She thought that her husband could be behind those letters. We should point out one important thing here. Shortly before these events, Paul found out that Karen was cheating on him, filed for divorce, and made sure that the court gave him full custody of their children and also the house. Karen was forced to move out and moved into a trailer in the backyard of the Gillespie's house. Don't forget about this detail while we continue with our story. To find out if Fresh Hour was actually involved, Gillespie sent him several letters stating that they knew everything. The couple told him to stop blackmailing them and not to do anyone any harm, and it looked like it worked for a while. The letters stopped. However, the family didn't have any evidence against Fresh Hour, so it was impossible to bring him to justice. But they succeeded in accomplishing the main thing. They stopped receiving letters and returned to normal life. Mary also thought that her colleague, David Longberry, could be behind all this. He tried to make her go out with him for a while, but she started an extramarital affair with the headmaster. Of course, there was no actual evidence to support this theory either. August 19, 1977 was just an ordinary day. The family basically forgot about all the threats and returned to their normal life. That morning, the phone rang in their house, and it was Ron who answered. Mary didn't think this call was important in any way, and she later regretted it. Immediately after a short conversation on the phone, Ron lost his temper, grabbed a gun from his safe, and left the house. But he didn't manage to get very far. His car drove into a tree at high speed at the nearest intersection. Ron died before the ambulance even arrived. Upon arriving at the scene, the police discovered that one shot had been fired from Gillespie's gun. They didn't manage to find any reason why he could have used his gun, either intentionally or accidentally. And the car crash happened right after the man left his house. The weirdness didn't end there. The forensic expert established that the level of alcohol in Ron Gillespie's blood exceeded the permissible limit by 1.5. His family was shocked because they were sure that Ron was completely sober when he left the house, and he didn't drink alcohol even during celebrations, never mind an ordinary weekday. Despite all of this, the police thought that what happened was just an accident and didn't conduct any investigations. Initially, the sheriff made a public statement promising to get to the bottom of this accident, but later retracted his words. Could it be that the stalker also knew the sheriff's dirty secrets and was able to manipulate him to their advantage? A few days later, the situation became even more confusing. The stalker started to send letters to some people demanding a more thorough investigation of Ron's accident. It looked like the stalker wasn't happy with the outcome of the accident. People started to receive letters even more often, and their content really worried both the recipients and the residents of the town. The style of the stalker's writing remained the same, just like the personal details of the recipients' lives. However, Mary Gillespie suffered the most. It seemed like she was the main target of this anonymous harassment. After the death of her husband, she admitted that she was actually cheating on him, but her lover and her were the only ones privy to this information. How could some stalker find out the secret that the lovers hid with utmost care? Mary accused Fresh Hour once again and told the police that she suspected his involvement. The man denied his involvement in the mailing of the letters, and no charges were brought forward. Despite the fact that the whole town was aware of Mary's dirty secret, she managed to keep her job. Years passed, and it looked like this stalker got bored of playing his cruel game. And only 6 years later, his actions shocked Circleville once again. Mary was driving a school bus when she suddenly noticed an inscription on one of the road signs. There were threats towards her daughter, and the woman ran out of the bus to remove the sign. When she came closer to the sign, she noticed a small box that was attached to another sign with a fish line. The woman took this box and returned to the bus. When she opened it, she was horrified to find a gun that was supposed to fire right after she opened the box. Fortunately, the mechanism of this device didn't work, and Mary called the police. They found out that the gun's serial number was filed away, but it was done quite carelessly. The detectives managed to restore it and find out the name of the owner. It turned out to be Paul Freshour. Of course, they immediately came to him to interrogate him. The man once again denied his involvement in the case. According to him, he lost this gun a long time ago. But it was too much of a coincidence for the police to leave Paul alone. The man was forced to go through a handwriting test. But the police, who had never dealt with such a complicated case before, made a serious mistake. Paul was asked to copy the letters directly from the anonymous letter. This approach is completely wrong. The suspect needs to write different, unrelated words and phrases that the experts are supposed to use to establish if the handwriting matches. Because of this mistake, the detectives established that Paul's handwriting was the same as the unknown blackmailer's. He was officially charged with attempted murder with the use of a gun in a box. The trial began at the end of October 1983. Despite the fact that Freshour had an unimpeachable alibi at the time of the assassination attempt on Mary, he was sentenced to 25 years in prison with a recommendation to not be released early for at least the first 7 years. Freshour denied the charges till the very end, but no one listened to him. The residents of Circleville clung to the opportunity to end this whole nightmare, and the court decision was enough for them to almost unanimously recognize Freshour as their blackmailer. Time passed. The alleged criminal was serving his sentence under strict conditions with almost no connection to the outside world. And what do you think? Circleville's residents continued to receive letters, and there were even more of them. In some letters, the stalker accused the prosecutor in charge of Ron's case of killing his girlfriend who was pregnant with his child. In others, he accused the coroner, who was also involved in Ron's case, of molesting minors. He demanded that the police investigate everything he described in his accusations. Moreover, even Freshour once received a letter with the following text: "So, are you ready to believe that you will never get out of here? I told you about this 2 years ago. I set you up. How come you didn't understand anything?" The prison staff denied any possibility that Freshour could have been the author of all of those letters. According to him, he simply wouldn't be able to bring such a master plan to life under their very noses. Despite this, he was transferred to solitary confinement, where he had neither paper nor pens to write anything. But the letters didn't stop. But none of this bothered the justice system. Paul stayed in prison, and after spending 7 years there, he was denied parole. The reason was obvious in their eyes. People continued to receive letters, which meant that Freshour was still dangerous. There was another absurd moment in this whole situation. Paul's prison was located in Lima, Ohio, and the stalker's letters had stamps of the city of Columbus. After some time, a witness came forward and shared some important information with the police. On the day Mary found the gun behind a road sign, another bus driver noticed a parked Chevrolet car in the same place with a man standing next to it. Judging by his description, he looked nothing like Paul, but this didn't affect the justice system's decision in regards to his parole. Only in May 1994, after serving 10 years in prison, Paul was released. That same year, the letters suddenly stopped. But the story was far from its logical conclusion. Do you remember the letters in which the stalker accused the prosecutor and the coroner of committing serious crimes? all of that turned out to be true. The prosecutor really killed his secret girlfriend, and the coroner repeatedly committed crimes against children. Moreover, Mary's colleague, who was also a bus driver, abused an 11-year-old girl and went on the run. It really turned out that the unknown blackmailer knew much more than an ordinary person could possibly know. But it's high time to ask the main questions. Who was this mysterious stalker, and what was the point of his actions? The internet is full of theories about this. Some of them completely illogical. Others are quite compatible with the events that have taken place. And only one theory seems so believable that it might actually be the answer to this eerie mystery. Let's remember Mary's colleague, David Longberry. After the woman rejected his advances, he could get mad at her and decide to ruin her life. The first letters were mainly focused on Mary's love affair. Only some of them were addressed to other residents of the town. Ron had always believed that Longberry was the author of the letters, but he had no real evidence. The call to the Gillespies on the morning of August 19, 1977 could have been made by David, and it would be the last straw for Ron. A man who rarely drank alcohol could drink to get liquid courage and decide to finally talk to Longberry without anyone around. But the level of alcohol in his blood indicated that Paul must have been very drunk, and this could have caused that fatal car crash. However, this theory doesn't explain who and when could have fired the shot from Ron's gun. But then, the most interesting thing begins. The subsequent letters could have been written by a completely different person, Freshour's wife, Karen. Moreover, she could have been the one who wrote those eerie inscriptions on the road signs and put her ex-husband's gun there. Her motive is very simple. After the divorce, the woman lost custody of her children and the roof over her head, and all this time, she was looking for a way to take revenge on her ex-husband. When David Longberry started all of this with the letters, Karen saw a great opportunity. Do you remember the witness who saw the Chevrolet car and the suspicious man standing right next to that road sign where Mary found the gun? According to the description, this man looked a lot like Karen's new boyfriend, and his relative had a car of the same make and color. But the coincidences don't stop there either. One day, Karen asked Paul's sister to borrow his typewriter because she was supposedly going to write a book. Paul's sister was very surprised by this request because at the time, the couple was in the middle of their divorce proceedings. But Karen insisted and took the typewriter. And what do you think? Some of the anonymous letters received by the residents of Circleville were made with the help of a typewriter. We can all agree that these facts seem too suspicious to be a mere coincidence. We can be 100% sure that Paul couldn't possibly write all those letters from prison, which means that he really was innocent. Karen hated him with all her heart and looked for any opportunity to take revenge on him, and she actually managed to put her ex-husband in prison for 10 long years. According to this theory, Longberry and Karen caused absolute chaos for the people in this whole town, and all of this just for personal revenge. Their actions brought notorious fame to this small, quiet town, making it known all over the world. They themselves probably didn't expect it, but most importantly, they managed to avoid any punishment, while the life of an innocent person was destroyed. What do you think? Could Paul really be that stalker? Or does the theory about Karen and Longberry seem much more believable? Maybe you have your own theories about this case. Share them in the comments, and thanks for watching.